Welcome back, folks, to the WP-Tonic show, our round table show that we have every Friday at Pacific Standard Time, 8:30. We've got a small but a powerful panel. We're going to be discussing some interesting things, and I'm sure it's going to be a lively discussion. We've got two guests panelists today. We've got Marie van Voort, the CEO of Yoast, and we got Heather Wide, the co-founder of Rocketeer. Rocketeer. Sorry, and she's a unicorn whisperer. I always loved that, Heather. I really did. Marie, would you like to introduce yourself quickly?
Yes, of course. Thank you. My name is Marieke van Rakt. Yeah, that's the Dutch version of my name. And I'm only a few weeks. I've been the CEO of Yoast. I've been at the company for 6 years, I guess now. I'm the founder of our online courses platform, Yoast Academy. I do a lot of marketing, research, growth, branding. Yes, that's about it, I guess. Yeah.
Just a busy lady in general.
Yes.
Heather, would you like to quickly introduce yourself to the listeners and viewers?
First, I want to congratulate Marieke on becoming the CEO of Yoast, because you're in a very small club of female CEOs. So, yay! And I am Heather Wild, CTO and co-founder of Rocketeer. I work with companies around the world to grow their tech infrastructure. And I was also one of the founding employees of Evernote, which a lot of people use. So they're really happy to hear that about me. And that's why I'm the unicorn whisperer. I help companies to get that unicorn status. And I also help people find the unicorn inside themselves. So
there you go. I was going to ask you where you think mine is, but I'm not going to do that.
I remember the first time we talked, I helped you to find that.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, that was right. And I've got my old friend and regular panelist, John Locke. Would you like to introduce yourself, John?
Yep, I'm John Locke, and I run a business called Lockdown Design and SEO, where we help manufacturing and industrial companies get more requests for quotes.
Right, that's great. So we're going to go into story one, and that's Yoast CEO responds to YoastCon Twitter controversy, calls for change in the SEO industry. And that was on the tab, and you also wrote a considerable post on your own website, Marie. On reflection, I was wondering how to start this conversation with you, but do you actually think that the culture of SEO compared to WordPress is very different? And do you also think there's got to be some fundamental change in the SEO culture?
I do think the culture, and so what I see of it, I go to WordPress events much more often than I go to SEO events. So I'm not the best person to ask this, but what I know of it, the WordPress environment is really, really friendly, and that doesn't mean that nothing goes wrong there. Yeah. But I think that environment is much more inviting to people than lots of other environments. So the problems that have been discussed aren't just in the SEO industry, I guess. They're in a lot of industries in which I think there are the majority of the participants is male. So you saw it in the Formula One, the racing with the cars. You had those promotional models as well. We see them at motorcycle events as well. In the SEO industry, you had them as well. So I think the WordPress community is just very special and maybe evolved a bit further than other parts of our world.
Yeah, I see it as a kind of on the human right level, really, Marie. I think any individual, no matter what of their sex, gender, religion, or race, have the right to go to do their business, to do their employment or their business without being harassed or bothered. Um, and that's how I try and treat people, because I don't appreciate people bothering me when I'm just doing my employment or my business.
And in a WordCamp there, you have the code of conduct, which explicitly states that we want to do it that way. And I never saw a code of conduct in any other event other than WordCamps and YoastCon, in which we also had like a code of conduct, which explicitly states that you do not want to have that kinds of behavior in a conference. I don't know, maybe other conferences have the same, but I think that's a good thing. We have that in our WordPress ecosystem.
Now, you know, I want to respect our time and I want to respect you, but for our listeners and viewers, I am going to ask you some difficult questions.
Yeah, you do.
You know, you're one of your husband's major critics, David Cohen, came on the show last week, and his position about his main beef with your husband is, you know, about some of his content, some of his behavior, but his main criticism, and I'm only interpreting this, and I'm sure David will put me right if I get this incorrect, is that your husband supports individuals through business that he knows, and he also applies this to Rand Fishkin, that both your husband and Rand support individuals in the SEO industry that are known to be engaged in behavior and have in a consistent pattern over the years engaged in behavior which any reasonable person would see as being outrageous. Mm-hmm. And your husband and Rand promote to promote women and to have an exclusive environment, yet they keep supporting these individuals. What would be your response to that?
I think it's a really hard question. I think it's too vague for me to say, so I don't know which persons he is referring to. I know that my husband is, our company is really active in the WordPress industry. Of course, Yoast also talks, and Jono, our my other colleagues, talk at certain SEO events, but we don't do that really often. And we have some, it's a really hard question because it's so vague.
Well, obviously.
So what I can say is that as a company, we are very much in favor of diversity, and it's something we stand for and try to execute as much as possible. And well, I think the other question you should ask directly at my husband. So and then I have to know which persons that he is supporting, I guess.
Well, the individual that run the conference where the videos have been recorded has, let's try and put this diplomatically, has a certain reputation, which some people would say isn't that great. So, I'm just going to leave it at that. For obviously, I don't want to.
I understand that. I know that person, and I think he's always been respectful to me as a woman. So that's all I can say about that. I have a hard time talking about people who aren't here. So maybe we should have the discussion with them themselves. And yeah. So what I think is for us was really hurtful that most of the allegations came to our company and not to, well, came to our company and to the conference we were hosting at that point of time. And although I think that David Cohen and other people, because there were more of them, they came up with a good point, namely there is a problem with how women are treated in the SEO industry and in the world as a whole. It wasn't clear to me, and it isn't clear to me as of today, why YoastCon was the event to promote that, because we have a very female-friendly environment there, and I was actually quite outspoken, and our company was quite outspoken in favor of female rights and gender diversity this year. So that felt really hurtful to be attacked in something you wanted to do as right as possible. And I can look into our support of people who do not think the same way about female as we do, but I'd like to take a look at their actions today and not their actions 10 years ago. I think that's the best way to go from here, and support everybody who wants to change their behavior.
Yep. Heather, what do you think? Do you, you're a strong lady. Have you been, have you felt bothered? You go to a lot of conferences. Do you think, have you experienced anything that you didn't appreciate? And I'm sure you put them right pretty quick.
So there's two sides of this. So it is a very difficult thing to navigate for women and men right now. And I have a column in Inc. magazine where I've been writing about this fairly frequently, trying to be as neutral as possible to help people kind of understand it from both sides. In one of my previous careers, I was a game designer, and there aren't very many female game designers. But one of the first things of this whole diversity scandal thing was Gamergate, which happened a few years ago, and that was at South by Southwest. A female game designer really got called out for it was really she was harassed tremendously. I never experienced any of that, and that's kind of the case. There's some women that are harassed and experience all of that, and there's others that aren't. And when I was a female game designer, had super supportive guys around me, and I was the only girl. I was for years, I was the only girl on the team. Guys treated me awesome. And if I had been treated terribly, I'm sure I would have left the tech industry. But because I had an amazing supportive team and no bad experiences, I've been in tech for 25 years. Now, as a conference speaker, again, as a speaker, I've been at conferences, many conferences with codes of conduct, and I've never been treated poorly. Now, as an attendee, when I had to be when I've had to be a sponsor, at booths and things like that, people have treated me kind of like a piece of meat sometimes. People come up to you and they think they have a right to you. And because you're a woman, and I've seen them do this to men too. I've seen women come up and sometimes guys too. If you are there on offer, they think that they can. I've had key cards slipped in my back pocket because you're in a hotel together. So conferences, for some reason, people think that it's okay to break patterns. But as a speaker, I've generally there's kind of another level where you're not people don't want to. People know that's okay. Stay away. I've never been attacked verbally or made to feel less than as a speaker, but as a sponsor, absolutely. People will attack you, and I don't know why that is. I don't know. And now I'm running my own conference, and there's people that are like, oh, this is amazing. And other people are like, why on earth are you doing that? So like, I completely feel that I completely sympathize with you, Marieke. I don't understand why. I think if you get to a certain level, there's a thing in Australia, they call it tall poppy syndrome, that if you get a little bit above people, they want to cut you down. And we don't have that in America, but I think there's a little bit of that in other people. So. But it doesn't have, it's not a male or a female thing. It's a power differential thing.
Yeah, that's the main thing I'm getting from your remark is you seem to be saying it's a power dynamic, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And if people feel that they have any power, like if they feel that they can take power over you, whether they are a man and you are a woman, whether they are a boss and you are a subordinate, whether they are a client and you are a vendor, then they will take that power.
What do you think, John?
What Heather just said is very eloquently sums up and leads into something that's been weighing heavily on my mind ever since all this started. And like you said, Heather, where there is power differentials, people are scared to come out, and people try and take advantage. Statistically, probably every single one of us that's either here or listening or will watch this in the future knows somebody that's either been harassed or assaulted or worse. And though I know that the way that this group of people, these renegades, went about this is probably the wrong way, I do think that there are some questions that need to be addressed, not only in marketing or SEO or WordPress, but as a society. And that really is when there are things that happen, like the conference organizer at Learn Inbound. There is an incident with a guy who kept harassing women at that conference, and they wrote about it very recently. How do women come forward and not be scared that they're going to be blackballed from their career or have repercussions from their work or their peers? How do men be supportive of the women that come forward? And how do men put other men in check and say, like, hey man, stop that, like, don't do that? Or, how do we take action against our colleagues? Or how do we do what's right? And that question is both for Marieke and Heather.
All right. What do you think, Marieke?
Yeah, I think so. So we had an incident, I think, not on this YoastCon, but YoastCon before, in which one of my colleagues was harassed. And I think, and we got the guy to leave. So I think we just have to look out for each other and see what is happening, and not close your eyes for someone, and take someone seriously, even if it's like little, because harassment can be that someone is dancing too close to you and you don't like that, and you should be able to say that. And if someone does not listen, then that's enough. And I think for every conference, making a code of conduct is a good thing, and making sure that everybody knows the code of conduct and what behavior you would like, and maybe tell each other that regularly, what you expect and how you expect each other to behave. Even within an after party, when everything gets a little bit more loose, then everybody should be able to feel safe. And that's hard, because sometimes it's not always clear when someone is fed up with something, I guess. So we should talk about that a lot and take each other seriously. I
just got one final question to you. before we go on to the other stories, obviously your husband has been made a head of volunteered and has been made head of marketing, and Matt Marenweg has kind of stated that your husband's going to be made the kind of public face of WordPress. With this storm, I do question your husband's judgments a little bit, to be truthful about it. But obviously, you're going to defend your husband because you love him, and you're head of a company which he built up. But I've got to be honest with you. Also, a few eyes was kind of surprised by the way he was appointed.
As were we. As were we.
There's been a lot of controversial statements and around how WordPress is managed, especially because it's supposed to be an open source project. And the way your husband was announced really aggravated that saw a little bit more. And also the previous individual who was the head of marketing, the way she was treated and wasn't notified at all. Can you see why I'm asking this question?
Yes. So I'm hoping, and I can't really say anything how it's going to be. I hope that there will be more leads or heads like Yoast has been appointed to in the future. So that's the way I'm hoping this project will evolve. He shouldn't be the only non-automatician there in the head of the game. So I'm really hoping that there will become more of these lead figures that will be either appointed or stand up. I'm also curious to see how the governance project will lead. As of the other person, who is Bridget, who was the head of marketing before, this is very unfortunate. So Yoast was asked by Matt Mullenweg, and it wasn't quite clear what his title was going to be. And the minute that Matt announced Yoast is going to be lead marketing and communication, he already said you have to talk to this about Bridget, to talk about Bridget about this, to Bridget about this. Sorry, Dutch. And at the minute he posted that post, we were all asleep then, because people sleep at a different time in the Netherlands. Yeah, and it was out there, and it's really, really unfortunate. And I think it wasn't Yoast's place to talk to Bridget. I think it was Matt's place to have talking to Bridget, as he chose Yoast to do that. And Bridget is a friend of ours, so it felt really, really awkward and weird. And she did not deserve in any way to be treated like this. So I can understand why people think, especially in light of what recently happened, that Yoast might not be the best person. But if you look at his track record in the last 10 years, what he did for the project and the force of nature he is in what he can do. Yoast is not much of a talker. We need Josefa to do that part, but he's a doer, and he can do, I think he can do a lot in order to get that project up and running. He's already started, and I strongly believe that his enthusiasm and also his power to get this project forward will actually pay off. So he's been appointed because he and our company pretty much 10 to 20% of our time and resources go back into WordPress. And that's why Matt chose him in that position. Very unfortunate, because somebody already was there. But I don't really see what Yoast was to blame there, other than maybe he could have said to Matt even more strongly, you can't do this if Bridget still's there. And I really hope, because I think that is the way to go, that more non-automaticians will get in such leading positions in the WordPress community. And maybe that's not the way the community wants it to grow, but maybe it's a way that we can grow and evolve even a bit further. So that's what I think about it. And we have to wait and see how this will evolve, I guess.
I think, thank you for that answer. Hope maybe your husband will agree to come on the show and we'll have
ask.
I will. And see what his plans are for WordPress in general, and how he sees it going forward. We're going to go for our break, folks, and we've got some great other stories to discuss. But before we go for the break, I want to really talk about one of our great sponsors, and that is WP Fusion. And what does WP Fusion do? Well, in your technology stack, you should obviously have WordPress, but you should also have a CRM like ActiveCampaign or Drip, or there's a host of them. There's over 40 of them that WP Fusion will work with. And what it enables is it puts your WordPress and your CRM, they can communicate with WP Fusion and a lot more easier. And it's amazing the automation, marketing automatizations you can do with the help of WP Fusion, especially if you've got an e-commerce site or membership site. So go to WP Fusion and see what they got. You're going to be blown away. And they're giving us an exclusive offer. If you use the coupon code WP Fusion, you will get 25% off any of their packages. And that's only offered to the WP-Tonic listeners and viewers. We'll be back in a few moments, folks. We're coming back. We've had a powerful and straightforward discussion, but I think it's been respectful as well. Hopefully it has. On to another interesting story. Zuckerberg to beat UK minister after damning digital gangsters report. So Facebook, they've not had the greatest year, and now they're classified as digital gangsters. What do you think, Heather?
Well, some people definitely would call Facebook a cancer. But no, you said gangsters. Yeah, I mean, the gangsters too. So basically the gist of this report is that the thing that I found most interesting about it is that Facebook has been taking people's profiles and marrying them up with third-party data without people's knowledge. So the things that Facebook knows about you, that you have declared, that you've told Facebook, they've been in the background talking to Google and talking to Amazon and talking to other people as well, and creating a more complete profile of you with third-party data. And under GDPR, that's not allowed anymore. But Facebook has still been doing it. And the EU is like, guys, you're not allowed to do that anymore. And Facebook's like, but that's her entire business. So they may be the first people that get the $20 million GDPR fine.
Loose change, really, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, and they don't care. So we've just been waiting kind of with bated breath as to who gets the first GDPR fine. And it's not going to be from somebody that screwed up their email list. It's going to be for somebody like Facebook that just continues to marry third-party data without user consent. And that's really what this is about. So Zuckerberg is going over now to talk to the minister and try and come up with some way that they can still kind of do this without people knowing about it, or maybe like there's going to be a button that people click without realizing they've clicked it or something. And I mean, because that's what Facebook always does, because if they don't have a way to continue to use people's data that they're not collecting on their own, then they don't really have a business anymore. So that's really what this is all about. And a lot of people, myself included, I have a company called TWIP where our entire business model is to help people to gather first-party data on their clients, because you can't get this data anymore. You can't legally grab third-party data and marry it up, but Facebook is big enough to not care. So
I think that was a fantastic synopsis of their problem. So what you're fundamentally saying, their business model is in Europe illegal, basically.
It's legal in America too.
So we got like an enormous company, and their whole business model is fundamentally illegal. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Well, the thing is, they're actually trying to change the law in California. So there's a new law in California that they're trying to get passed that will allow people to opt in. It's like reverse GDPR. So what they're trying to do is to get people to say, I want you to use my third-party data, and you can pay me money for that. So like the opposite of the EU version, which is like, no, you can't have any of my data, and every 90 days you have to take me off your list unless you can trick me into opting back in. In California specifically, not in the rest of the US, but in California, it's like, oh, you can keep me on your list indefinitely as long as you continually pay me money for it. So it's
before I move it on to one of the other panelists, is there anything fundamentally wrong in what Facebook is doing, or is it they just push the limits to such an extent that's got them into a lot of trouble?
As a CTO and somebody that like I mean, my specialty is user experiences and like using AI to create the best user experience. So I absolutely like from a scientific, like science perspective, I love what Facebook is doing. From a legal perspective, like what they are doing is wrong because it is not, the law says they cannot do it right now. So like from a business perspective, what they're doing is wrong because the law doesn't exist right now. So what they're doing in California to try and get the law changed is exactly what they should do. And him going over there to try and get the law changed in Europe is what they should be doing. So they shouldn't be doing it right now in public. They should only be doing this as like a closed beta to prove the model that it works. And then they should release it to the public once the laws changed. So that's like from a business perspective, what they should be doing. So like, that's why like Google with their labs and like we're running things out, and like Amazon with open sourcing things like in a lab environment until the laws work in their favor. That's the, like, even though like they're doing the same things, and people always use the argument like Google and Amazon are doing the same things. No, they're not. They're working with the governments to make sure that it's allowed on a massive scale. So Facebook kind of does it in the background without people knowing they're doing it. Whereas Google and Amazon work with people until like they open source these things until they're allowed to do it on a massive scale.
So what do you think, John? What did you think of this article?
So this is happening at the same time that they're appealing the German decision, which is really similar about combining the data. Man, I really wish there would come a social network where everybody can flock, because I remember, the same thing happened with Friendster and MySpace. Once everybody that you know kind of jumps over to the new social network, the old one dies. And I'm really hoping that happens to Facebook someday, because it's not a good platform. I really think it's peaked out. They have legal troubles, but the thing is can they compel Zuckerberg and Facebook to comply with this? And as Heather stated, I think it really comes down to once they get fined by a government, then they might actually change. But until that happens, they're probably just going to keep going renegade.
Well, they got to, really, isn't it? 'Cause they're a business, and what you said, I understand what you're saying here, John, but the problem is all these social networks, I think the basic problem is the business model. The business model is it's free, but nothing is free. So
they try to pay social. Well, they tried like what app.com, Hello, Mastodon. None of them really like take off the way where there's like Facebook and kind of now Instagram, which Facebook owns. So it's the same thing. And WhatsApp, like there's people that didn't know up until recently that happened a long time ago. You know, I don't know.
So, Marie, do you think that, I also think it's also company culture is a bit of a problem. Facebook, they got a powerful female CEO, but they also seem to have a kind of gangster culture. What do you think?
I don't know. I know a few people work at Facebook. Also, I know the head of growth, I guess, who's in the document we were discussing actually. But I think they have, like, internally, it's really fun to work there. I guess they have a lot of fun and they do lots of cutting edge things. Only I have ethical problems with the way they advertise. I think that's not serving anyone any good. So I don't like the platform that much. And I think in the Netherlands it's getting much and much less structured. So I used to be on Facebook all the time, but it's getting dead. People don't post pictures of their families anymore on Facebook. They do that on Instagram, which is the same company, I guess. But I think, John, it will die eventually. I really think so. Because I don't see people, it's gone way down. And we, at Yoast, we used to get like a lot of traffic from Facebook, and it's all the way down. It's not that important anymore.
That's interesting. I actually, it's interesting you mentioned that, but because the actual figures go a bit against that. A lot of that growth is through Instagram and some other
and other countries. So I think, but they are actually decreasing in Europe. I don't know about the United States. I should check those numbers.
Yeah, I need to check it.
They are decreasing.
But on the other hand, I have very mixed feelings about it. I think it's a cultural thing, and they really pushed it to maximise profit.
Yeah, I get that.
But I think if another platform really took off and it was free and it was based on advertising income, I think you just end up in the same area because they would be induced to pursue the very similar policies to what Facebook does. But it's just that but I think it's also a cultural element as well, is that I think Facebook has really pushed it and then pushed it some more. And I think that's probably linked to the higher management of Facebook, basically. That's my little bit. Probably totally wrong, but there we go. On to a next story, and a bit of a sad one. Alex Mills ends his battle with leukemia. Alex is still alive, hopefully. Is famous for some of his plugins, and he's had a long-term battle with leukemia, and there's no purpose of having further treatment. What did you think of this one, John?
I think it's always sad when a member of the community dies prematurely, and cancer sucks. I've had people in my life die prematurely, and it definitely sucks. There's not much more to say. I mean,
I thought I would put it in to honor him. It's a bit strange because he's still alive, but but he contributed a lot of plugins, and quite a few of them I've used. You've used a few of his, have you, John?
I've used a few of his, yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't know him personally. There's so many people in the WordPress community that I don't know, personally. I just know who I know. But he's a person that seems, like he has a lot of respect, and a lot of people love him. I would just say, maybe there's something the community can do for his family, so that might be good.
I think we go on to the next story, but I wanted to mention Alex because he's been a great contributor. let's go to number 4. Make no mistake, Samsung Galaxy folds is a big deal. What did you think of this one, Heather? Do you think it's a big deal?
Well, I do know that Apple is losing a lot of market share on their phones. And yeah, I mean, Apple's been trying everything they can to catch up with pretty much everyone else. As I've said, I do a lot of traveling overseas, and pretty much everyone has been using Samsung and Huawei phones. We don't see a lot of Huawei in the United States because they're not allowed to sell them here.
Oh, and it doesn't help. It doesn't help trying to have their leading member of their management extradited, does it?
No. But I mean, I don't know if. I mean, people have been promising like a folding phone for a while. Honestly, at the price point, I don't think it's going to be, because it's a $2,000 phone and it's kind of a novelty. Like, the idea is that it can turn into a tablet, but you could have, you could have an iPad for $299 and a phone for $299, and it'll still be cheaper and smaller in your purse or your briefcase than this folding phone. So I think it's a novelty. I don't think it's gonna to do well. And the Samsung, I mean, anyone that has a Samsung Galaxy or the Samsung Note or any of those knows that the worst thing that could possibly happen is you crack the screen. Has anyone have one of those? Yeah.
I'm an Apple freak. So
yeah. Well,
there's no hope for me here.
Yeah, because one, you can't get a really good screen protector for those, and you can't put them in a case. So if you have one of those folding screen ones, like, I would be afraid to drop it, because you've got a $2,000 thing that you can't protect, and the second you drop it, like, you have to replace it. And the Samsung ones are probably about, I mean, I would guess it's about $1,000 to $1,500 to replace that screen.
That make your day, would it? Dropping that, would it?
So I not only is it out of the price point, it is unrealistic to expect anyone really to buy that as more than a novelty. However, Samsung is known to release things like the Samsung Gear VR that you could only use if you had a Samsung Gear. So they only sold 1,000 of them, and they were happy with that. So they like to release things just for PR.
Yeah, just to upset Apple, I think, isn't it? Just to put the knife in a bit more, you know. So, Marie, what do you reckon? You know, you've got all these different devices and you've got voice. Do you really see that changing the landscape of SEO in the next couple of years dramatically?
Ooh, well, everybody thinks so, but I'm skeptical in the whole voice thing. But that doesn't really matter, because if Google is going in the direction of voice, then SEO changes because of that. But I'm a bit old-fashioned, so I have a husband who tries to put all devices on our Google Home and does the lighting and the curtains and everything. And all my children are constantly turning off and on lights because it's fun with Google, but I just press the button. Yeah, I like pressing buttons. I don't know. We have to wait and see. It changes everything if voice becomes a real thing. And it's hard in the Netherlands because, they don't speak Dutch ever. They can't understand. It's really hard. So it's only in the English language where voice is getting really good. And for a small language like Dutch, So usually if I talk Dutch to my Google Home, he thinks I'm talking English, and the other way around as well. So it's not that good yet.
Because it's so close.
Sorry?
Because it's so close. Because every time I'm in the Netherlands, I'm like, oh, it's almost English.
There are a lot of words that are the same. Yeah, but the sentence is totally different, and the grammar is totally different. And the word order in English is rather strict. We can do everything, so it's hard. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you made a good point, because a lot of these voice dictation and these devices, they can't handle my accent. I've got a strong North London accent, and it cannot cope. It cannot cope with it at all. I might as well be I'm not trying to be funny. I might as well be talking Dutch. So, what do you reckon, John?
Yeah, I think it's interesting that they're releasing this at a high price point. It's really funny because if you look at things, Android has a bigger market share than Apple, and Samsung seems to come out with a lot of the things that Apple does before Apple does, but Apple gets a lot of the credit. I think a lot of that has to do with the perception of the brand, like Apple is being an innovator. It's perceived as that. If Samsung is trying to position itself as more of a luxury brand, which Apple low-key is a bit of a luxury brand, that might be a good thing for them, but it's going to take a lot of time to execute on that. So having innovation and plus positioning themselves differently might do good for them. So, but it's going to take a long time to change how people perceive them in the market as just another cool device or just another gimmick. So,
well, it's hard to tell what's a gimmick and what will, as you lower the price a bit, become a bit more mainstream. If everybody could make that judgment call, everybody would be a millionaire plus, wouldn't they? So I think we wrap that. Marie, so you've become the CEO of Yoast. Where do you and your husband have built up a fantastic business. Where do you want to take it? What's the plan in the next year, 18 months for Yoast?
So last year, and I think even the year before, we were so busy with Gutenberg. So a lot of our developers actually helped in the Gutenberg project, and we had to make our plugin Gutenberg ready. So this year, we're back on our own track, and we have we're really looking into building more Guten blocks. So that's still Gutenberg, but making it easier for people to add schema to their website. So that's a thing. We're working together with both Bing and Google to make live indexing possible. So if you change anything on your website and you use Yoast SEO, it will automatically be indexed by Google and Bing. Some people use Bing, and we'll have another few nice features. Working on the internal linking tool, making sure our languages are up to date. So we're working on more and more languages in our in our readability analysis and in our internal linking tool, making sure we can all get them. We have a lot of linguists. So I think that's about it. We have a lot of things on stack, and we're also working on making more online courses. So that will be
all right.
Yeah, coming out.
Sounds like a busy year, or
Yes.
or 3 years. I
Yeah.
think there's only like 3 years of work actually. I think we're going to wrap it up. John, how can people find out more about you and what you're up to? Oh, you're muted, John.
hold on. You can find me at my website, which is lockdownseo.com. And also go on YouTube and search hashtag lockdownseo. I'm trying to put out videos every day with just some SEO tips for people on running regular businesses. So check it out.
Go to the channel. It's got great advice. Heather, how can people find out more about you and what you're up to, Heather?
You can find me on pretty much every social channel at Heathriel, Heathriel. Also, I'm doing a conference next year in Antarctica called AntarcticConf. We're looking for sponsors. Yoast would be an amazing one. So antarcticconf.com. Remember this extra C in Antarctica. Yeah, so we just are about to announce our speakers. We have some 30 amazing speakers that are going to be there. It's on a cruise ship that goes from South America round trip to the Antarctic Peninsula, so it's going to be pretty amazing. We're excited about that. And yeah, so hit me up on any social channel at Heathriel. So.
Yeah, I spent a little bit of time in the Falkland Islands.
Oh, that's awesome! Yeah,
I
that's
did. Yeah,
I
didn't really want to be there, but I was supposed to go there. I had a great time with with the penguins.
Yes.
And the wind. I'm going to shut up now because I'm not drawing a great picture of the trip.
So we have to go through the Drake Passage, and then we'll be sailing past Antarctica for 4 days, and that's when the conference is going to take place, as we're sailing past the Antarctic.
I hope you get nice weather, Heather.
Oh, well,
right. They're
technically in summer, so it'll be nice 60-degree weather in Antarctica. We'll see the glaciers. It'll be great.
I'm sure it's going to work out fine, Heather. Yeah. All right. Sorry, I'm just English. Heather knew. She's been on the show before. She knew what she's getting into. Right. Marie, how can people find out more about you and the company in general?
Well, you can check out our website, yoast.com. I have my own personal blog. I've started since I became CEO, so I don't have a lot of posts yet, but I'm planning to do more about company culture and about leadership. My blog is marieke.blog, but you can just Google me. I'm well optimized.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thanks, panel. It's been a great show. I think we covered some serious stuff, but I think it's been great discussion. Viewers and listeners, we'll see you next week when we have another great panel where we'll be talking about WordPress and tech in general and the most interesting stories that I've found during the week. We'll see you next week, folks. Bye.